Our parents leave us too early. Our spouse and our children come along too late. Our siblings are the only ones who are there for us our entire ride. I love this quote because our siblings are supposed to be there. Always. We expect to grow old together, possibly raise our children together. But what happens when sibling relationships have been tampered with? Is it possible that some parents purposefully destroy their children's sibling relationships? I'm here to say yes. Unfortunately, this happens and it happens way too often. It's possible. My parent did this to me, and today we're going to talk about it. Let's dive into the dark, very common topic of sibling alienation. Hi, I'm Maddie, and welcome back, or welcome to my project. Here I talk about all things related to a certain form of severe child psychological currently known as parental alienation. I went through this starting around the age of 8 or 9 when my parents were still married towards the end of their marriage. This type of abuse often happens during a custody dispute or a divorce, and it really involves one angry parent manipulating their child to reject their other loving parent without true justification. This is a healthy, loving child bond that is purposefully destroyed because this parent is angry and wants to hurt their ex, wants to isolate and control their child. It's a very devastating form that leaves long-lasting effects, and that's why I speak out about it on my project. I usually talk about parental alienation, but did you know that this type of psychological abuse can take many different forms? Not only do we have parental alienation, there's also sibling alienation, extended family alienation, grandparent alienation, for example. There's friend alienation, communal alienation. But today we're going to talk about sibling alienation. This is close to home for me, but I do not represent all alienated kids or speak for all alienated kids. I'm also not an expert. I'm just speaking from my own experiences. First, let's define sibling alienation. Sibling alienation involves a third party, often a parent, manipulating one or both of their children to reject each other. Essentially, it's an extreme form of triangulation. When, why, and how does sibling alienation occur? Well, sibling alienation often occurs when a parent may feel threatened, angry, insecure, or fearful, and they really want to seek control and power. This pathological parent will seek control and power by controlling their children's relationships with each other. This parent will isolate the siblings, which will weaken them and keep them from talking about issues in the family, for example. This parent will also act sometimes out of jealousy. They can't stand their children being closer to each other than they are with them. How will a parent pit siblings against each other? Well, there are various different mechanisms, alienation tactics a parent will use. Let's get into a few of them. Number 1, bad mouthing. This can be very covert, or this can be more overt. For example, a covert way of bad mouthing one sibling to another may be, have you ever thought that your sister might, just be really judgmental and mean? Or do you think that your brother has ever lied to you? Something more overt might be crying and saying, your sister, your brother is just so hurtful in front of their other sibling, which is going to make that sibling naturally feel bad for their parent and resentful or confused at their sibling. They might even lash out at their sibling for hurting their parent. This is very common to me. I actually lived most of my life being the main target of my parents' alienation. So I was, of course, alienated to different degrees from all of my siblings. I have 4 younger brothers. I was also the only child targeted with the parental alienation, so my brothers always had close and happy, loving relationships with my dad. Basically, there's one of 2 ways that parents can alienate their child. They can pit one sibling against the other, or they can pit both siblings against each other. I hope that makes sense. I want to be really clear. To lose one sibling for no justifiable reason while being blamed and made to believe it's your fault is a type of pain I wouldn't wish on anyone. Of course, from family to family, sibling alienation will often differ. It might even change over time according to the pathological parent's whims and according to the role that each of the child are playing in the family at that moment in time. I've noticed in my family and many others that it seems whatever role the child has been given by their pathological parent, whether that's the favorited child, the scapegoated child, the lost child, the forgotten child, whatever it may be, the role that child is meant to play is going to be perceived by the siblings as well. I'm going to use my family as an example here. So I was the scapegoated child in my family, the black sheep, could do nothing right, the mess up of the family, blamed for everything and all the problems of the family. And what I noticed growing up from a young age, after the divorce really, is that all of my brothers, to various degrees, took on my mom's mentality about me as far as the scapegoating went. So they all began to slowly adopt my pathological parents' view of who I am, which is a very skewed view, and it's not true. They began to treat me like the scapegoated child in the family, in addition to my mom treating me like the scapegoated child in the family. And this does extend to the favorited child in my family too. He was also treated very well by the other siblings in contrast. So I noticed that in these family systems, the siblings seem to adopt the perceptions and the attitudes of that pathological parent towards the other siblings. It's like the pathological parent sets the tone for the family. Here's how you treat this kid. Here's how you treat this kid. And everybody follows suit. It's pretty sick. It often feels like a lose-lose situation being in one of these families. In a typical sibling relationship, what you put in is generally what you get out. Most people can appreciate the value of having a close, connected relationship with one sibling. With sibling alienation, this is not a typical sibling relationship because there is an interference by a third party. Similar to how a targeted parent might feel like no matter what they do, what they say, any amount of effort they put in, no matter what, their child keeps rejecting them. So too, the targeted sibling can never win, no matter what. They're stuck in this role. They cannot escape the attitudes of their family, the perception of their siblings. No amount of explaining or trying to show them who you actually are will change their minds. No amount of trying to show your sibling that you love them and want a relationship outside of your parents' influence that will get your sibling to understand what your parent is doing. They can't see the manipulation, usually, and they fail to understand how a parent subtly pitting their children against one another is wrong, is cruel, is abusive. Some siblings may grow up and mature and develop, maybe have children of their own or have other life circumstances that help them see the dysfunction in the family, and things might improve with the sibling relationships down the line. Some families may have a single scapegoated child. For example, that was me in my family system. My parent, my entire life, pit my siblings against me. There was nothing I could do to stop this, no matter how many times I tried talking to that parent and explaining them how damaging it was for me and my relationships to talk badly about me, to cry about how I was hurting them and everything like that. No amount of begging, Mom, please stop talking bad about me and my brothers, I used to beg. It's affecting my relationships. Please stop crying about how much you're hurt by me. She didn't care, or maybe she cared too much. I don't know. But she couldn't stand other people loving me more than I loved her. She couldn't stand anyone else being closer to me than she was. She couldn't stand anyone else loving me. That's why her love always felt like possession. It felt possessive. She had to own me. She could only be the person I loved. But in reality, there's enough love to go around. I love a lot of people in my life, and I think a lot of people love me. And I love watching my family members and friends and everyone who loves my kids love on my kids. So I don't understand this, but that's how it was. Other families might have more than one scapegoat, or the scapegoat might revolve. It might change according to the parents' feelings and whims and emotions. Regardless, life for the scapegoated sibling often is extremely isolating, painful, and full of self-doubt and low self-esteem. Especially with so many different family members bullying you or buying into this false narrative about who you are, perhaps even spreading lies or false information or gross exaggerations that are spun in a way to destroy your reputation. It can be difficult to maintain any type of self-worth whatsoever in that environment. Imagine your parent, siblings, And potentially most of your extended family members think you're a problem, think you're messed up, something is wrong with you, you're not good enough, and they don't accept you. They don't consider you one of them. They don't treat you like part of the family. Maybe deep down, you too don't feel like you're part of the family. Maybe deep down, you too don't feel like part of them. Feeling like an outsider in one's own family of origin has got to be one of the most painful experiences that I've been through. I can't think of many situations that are more lonesome than that. Out of any group on this planet, you would imagine that you'd feel most safe and secure with the people who have raised you. What is the upside here? So what? What now? How do we survive sibling alienation? How do we stop sibling alienation? What lessons can be learned? I won't sugarcoat it. This really sucks. It's painful. Heartbreaking, really. A lot of people have been through parental alienation and sibling alienation. And sometimes siblings mature and realize what you already have realized, and there is hope. But as for the waiting process, the back and the forth, in the meantime, the being rejected constantly, here's my advice. It probably applies to targeted parents too. First, you can only control your thoughts, your emotions, your perceptions, not your sibling. Just because your sibling isn't present in your life now doesn't mean that they're gone forever. They've been under the destructive influence of mind control. I think this gives me a lot more empathy for my siblings. I know it's so difficult to see what's true, what's real, what's not. And the manipulation creates this dark cloud where you can't see straight. So I have lots of empathy for my brothers, even when they do reject me. Remember that your sibling wants to love you. Deep down, they do love you, and they want to express that love, but they've been forced to choose. One good thing that I like to tell myself is what they believe about me is not true. What they believe about me is not true. I have two other pieces of advice while going through sibling alienation. The second piece of advice, in addition to controlling your thoughts and perceptions and emotions, is to ask yourself the following question. Would you want to be the person you would have to be in order to fit in and be accepted by your family? For me, the answer was not just no. It was heck no. No way. No, thank you. I'd rather die than be the person I'd have to be to fit in to my family of origin. Why? Because that person would not be me. I wouldn't be true to myself if I were molding myself into the person I had to be to fit into my family. Been there, done that, tried that, 20 years, never worked, never will. So if you were put in the scapegoat role growing up, please know that means that there is something fierce inside of you that sets you apart, and that fierceness inside of you threatens the system. That's why you've been given the scapegoated role to begin with. And that's beautiful, I think. My final piece of advice, as the targeted sibling, you might have also been the scapegoated child, but you have the best chance at ending the cycle. Do you realize how amazing that is? A lot of your siblings, your alienated siblings, they might go on to repeat the cycle themselves or find themselves alienated from their own kids, find themselves in a relationship with a toxic person because that's all they know. That's the roadmap of love, relationships. And you have the chance now to change things for not only your children, but your children's children, your great-grandchildren, the rest of the human race to come from your family of origin. Not only have you experienced the worst of the abuse, opening your eyes to the dysfunction, but there's also something in you that rejects the dysfunction. No more. Many people, maybe even most people, will grow up to repeat their parents' mistakes and behaviors. Some may identify that something is off with their family. They may even identify that it's abusive. But they might also fail to change anything moving forward or stand up to injustice. The minority of people both identify and reject the dysfunction in their families of origin. This is why ending the generational patterns, the generational behaviors and trauma is often such a lonely process, because so few people have the courage to not only identify it and admit to themselves that their parent has mistreated them, but also say, I'm not okay with this, and set boundaries. Not many people have the strength to do that. And remember, if you feel guilty about putting up a no contact with your parent who is actually and neglectful. To say that's okay, to accept their mistreatment of you, is actually enabling your parent to continue their bad behavior. In a lot of ways, it's a loving act of kindness to tell your parent, I'm not going to allow you in my life if you treat me and the people I love this way. It's an act of kindness because you're not enabling them to be a mean and hurtful person. I hope that makes sense. If you're watching this video and you could relate to anything that I've said, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Make sure you have the bell notification turned on and leave a comment down below. What do you think of all of this? Have you been an alienated sibling? Have you been a triangulated sibling? Did you find this insightful or helpful? Let me know in the comments if you'd like to hear more about other lesser known forms of parental alienation, like grandparent alienation or extended family alienation. I can personally attest to, quite honestly, every form of alienation in one's personal relationships. So I'd be happy to discuss this more. I'm laughing, I think, as a coping mechanism. If you've been alienated from one of your parents, it's pretty common you've been alienated from your siblings and others as well. And I'm so sorry you've been through this. But there is life on the other side of alienation, I promise you. If you haven't reached out to that targeted parent yet, that parent you lost time with, that parent you believed negative things about, that you were scared of and angry at, please consider reaching out to them. When I reached out to my dad and started to repair the relationship with him, that's when my healing journey really began. And I'm so grateful to have him in my life now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.